Hamilton and Burr are like two brothers with very different approaches to life. Before I ever heard Wait For It, I read that Lin-Manuel Miranda said about its writing how he was trying to capture the feeling of seeing one's friends and age mates rocket ahead with partners, kids, careers, recognition, when one is still struggling to get established. Did he ever have that feeling? Not for long, I'm guessing, but when you're young, even a few years gap can feel like an eternity. I'm not prone to that feeling myself. I never hankered after fame, even in my own small pond, and successful in my own lights. Nevertheless, only 13 years after his own graduation, Miranda gave the commencement address at the university he attended. And he'd already written a Tony Award-winning play and another one that was about to go to Broadway and rock the cultural world. So knowing that Miranda sympathized with Burr's position, I was predisposed to see the merits of wait for it, wait, in tension with I'm not throwing away my shot. Hamilton is being unreasonable here when he says of Burr's affair with a British officer's wife, go get her. What are you waiting for? Burr might play it safe, too safe, about a lot of things, but in this matter, he's already sailing pretty close to the wind. I don't know what the penalty was in such matters, but I'm guessing that if he had taken Hamilton's advice, he'd have gotten unceremoniously shot. Burr's approach did work out well for him. He and Theodosia were still together when her husband died, never having discovered the affair, and she was Burr's wife for 12 years until her own death. Wait For It is about how two people in similar circumstances can take them in opposite directions, like our Jesus story. In contrast to Hamilton's poor and fatherless childhood, Burr grew up in a distinguished family. The fire and brimstone preacher grandfather he refers to is none other than Jonathan Edwards. With money and privilege, but otherwise their stories run in parallel. Orphaned at an early age, burdened by a sense of responsibility, possessed of brilliant minds, and a strong drive to do something worthwhile with them. That can cause a person to rush ahead, feeling that he has something to prove, he has nothing to lose, and another to hang back, waiting for just the right moment to use his gifts. Miranda said that he had to think hard about which of these two characters to play. He judges Wait For It and The Room Where It Happens are the best songs that he's ever written. And Riley notes that he gave them both to Leslie Odom. I think the best song is Satisfied, but what do I know? But he decided that as a Latino actor, he never got a chance to be the main character, only the white guy's sidekick. And with the chance to play the title character and hero, he was going to be Alexander Hamilton. It was the right decision on other grounds. Can you imagine these two voices being switched? Miranda's is rougher, more conversational, and not only because he does nothing to obscure his New Yorkian accent. He sings with great expressiveness and subtlety, but his voice, like Hamilton's personality, is a bit abrasive. Odom's voice is lyrical, befitting Burr's more diplomatic character, the one who persuades rather than arguing someone into submission. The one who, in this song and elsewhere, is all too aware of the possibility of making mistakes. The one who calls his friend and enemy by his name. Hamilton never simply calls him Aaron. The one who wonders of the other, what's it like in his shoes? Odom's voice gives rise to the occasion of this great song. It's tender, gritty, and passionate in turns, as Burr shares his whole life's philosophy and how he got here. It may seem like a ditherer to Hamilton and to us, but he has his reasons for taking his time, and we hear it in his voice as clearly as the words he sings. I am the one thing in life I can control. I am an original. I am inimical. I am not falling behind or running late. I am not standing still. I am lying in wait. Isn't it great how you have to wait for the second to last? Wait for it, Burr sings. I'm willing to wait for it. It comes at such an unexpected moment that I had to listen to it a half a dozen times and practice about a half dozen more before I could hit it on cue. Waiting is an art, but it can be a fault too. Sometimes people think that the purpose of the church is to learn about God and become proficient at talking about faith. It's hard to say where we got that idea. According to Jesus, what you believe is not what you say you believe. What you really believe is what you do. This passage of Scripture is nobody's favorite. Maybe because we want to think that what we say we believe is what we believe. I don't want to think that what we do is what matters. If there had been an inquest into Jesus' death, this parable of the two brothers would have been presented as one of the things that got him killed. Jesus tells this story during the last week of his life, after he has ridden the donkey into Jerusalem, chased the business people out of the temple, and cursed a fig tree for failing to bear fruit. He goes back to the temple to teach, and the religious wish he hadn't. They do not like what Jesus is doing. Jesus' critics corner him and ask, "Just who do you think you are?" Jesus responds, "Let me ask you a question. You answer mine and I'll answer yours. Who gave John the right to baptize? Was it God or was it John's idea?" Jesus put the authorities in a pickle. If they said that John was just a charismatic personality, then the people who love John will be furious. If they say that John was a prophet, then they have to explain why they are ignoring John's pronouncement that Jesus is the Messiah. This is, have you stopped watching The Bachelorette kind of question. There's no good answer. They have to concede the round to Jesus. We don't know. But the truth is, they do know. They do know they are wrong. And then, as often as he does, Jesus tells them a story. Once upon a time, a man had two boys. He goes to the older one and says, "Son, I need for you to work in the vineyard today." The boy replies, "I don't want to." But later he thinks better of it and goes. Not knowing this, the father sends his second son to do the work that his older brother refused to do. The eager to please son says, "Yes, sir, nothing would make me happier than to work in the vineyard. I'll be right there." 2 hours later, the polite son is still on the couch watching Squid Game. Now, which one pleases the father? The son who says he will not work, then does, or the one who promises to work and never shows? It's a no-brainer. It's not what either one says that is the most important. It's what each does that matters. That's obvious. That's not what got Jesus executed. What got Jesus killed was that he told the wealthy people which brother they were. They are the ones who say the right things, believe the right things, vote for the right things, but who do not do the things that God asks them to do. Jesus says to the well-thought-of, decent, successful people, "Criminals and hookers are going into the kingdom of God ahead of you." That's quite a thing to say in a place of worship. It's no wonder that on Friday of that week, Jesus was executed. Jesus takes on the people who think well of themselves, not because they say the wrong things, but because they do not practice what they say they believe. They mistake convictions about God for obedience to God. We hear this story and we're on Jesus' side. We like it when he puts down the self-righteous people. The problem is that some days this story is about us. When the question is spirituality important in your life? About 80% of Americans say yes. When asked, when do you feel the strongest connection to God? 40% say praying alone. That's a fine answer. 21 respond out in nature. Also very good. 21% say in a worship service. I really like those people. 6% when praying with others, and 2% when reading a sacred text. Did you notice what's missing? They don't even have a category for acting on your faith. Because unfortunately, we've come to believe that religion is something you think instead of something you do. It's easy to get beliefs mixed up with actions. We're tempted to say that we care about the poor and then fail to share what we have. To agree upon the importance of racial justice, but assume we deserve the privileges that come our way. And then to applaud our own good sense and ignore what we fail to do. Barbara Brown Taylor puts it this way: there's no shortage of people who say, believe, or stand for the right things. We have plenty of those in the world. What God is short of are people who are willing to go where God calls them and to do what God gives them to do. Maybe we have such good imaginations that we actually believe that we have done the things that we really only thought about doing. Have you ever thought about calling a friend who's having a hard time, rehearsed about what you were going to say, decided to send an email instead, thought about what a nice gesture it would be, congratulated yourself on your thoughtfulness, and let it go at that? We believe in doing kind things, but sometimes we don't do them. We just think about them. George Bernardos writes, "A thought which does not result in an action is not much." The theological word for this distance between what we believe and what we actually do is sin. Is sin because it finally tears us up to think something and never act on it. It tears us up from the inside when we talk about love and act with indifference, or say right and do nothing, or say I'll go and then go nowhere. If we're not careful, we can spend our lives learning the lines, never raising the curtain, waiting for it. If we keep spouting the right opinions without doing anything about it, we'll end up empty. If we keep talking about doing good but never do it, it will steal our soul. I know this from experience. So do you. There is an incompleteness in knowing the good we should do without doing it. When we first hear this story, we may think that Jesus outsmarted the religious people by using their own methods against them. But nothing would have made Jesus happier than to have them finally understand the joy of living their faith. Jesus wants them to say, I need to stop thinking about holding the right opinions, that's enough. I need to start caring about what I do as well as what I think. They've gotten so attracted to their own ideas that it was hard for them to hear a call to actually do something. They thought they were saying yes to God, but they acted out nothing but no to people who needed their help. Both of the children in this parable lied to their father. Neither son gets it completely right. Even after we have said no, even after we have rejected God's hopes because of our laziness, God still welcomes us. Jesus warns people who think thinking right is the point, because Jesus recognizes that we are missing the fun of it. The difference between talking about the Christian faith and living it like Jesus is the difference between reading sheet music and singing the song. The reason God wants us to do something is that there is more joy in loving your neighbor than there is in knowing you are supposed to. The pandemic has made this harder, doing good is more difficult when we have to stay 6 feet away. When it feels like nothing is getting better, life is overwhelming, and we languish. We want to sit and cry, and sometimes we do just that, but we have to find a way to do some good. We have to look for the good that we can do for those who are close to us and those who are far away. We have to look for the good for the people who are doing good and join them. Fortunately, College Park has people who have figured out that the joy of faith is in the action and not in the words. We have a sizable team that's rallied to help one young Afghan family find a new home in Greensboro, just as we did with Syrian families, Bosnian and Serbian families, Sudanese men, and Vietnamese families. We have a group committed to combat hunger here in our city by cooking for gum, by sponsoring a mobile market, and providing 100 backpacks of food every week for kids at Peck. We have dedicated people who are supporting the Syringe Exchange Clinic, now starting its 4th year and expanding. There are a huge number of teachers helping our children and youth to navigate their early years while learning the stories of God in Christ. We have people working with Passport Camps, a beacon of support for young people and children every summer. I could go on, so could you. My point is not that we are so cool. Rather that we are one church that are trying hard not to embarrass Jesus by doing rather than merely talking. After finishing his first year as the Methodist bishop in Alabama in charge of 630 pastors, William Willimon wrote, "I found that most of what I have to do is mundane and that lots of churches are boring. But I can also show you a lawyer who is giving away $1 million to establish new churches in poorest neighborhoods because when you lose contact with the poor, we lose Jesus," he said. "I can show you a church that meets in a school cafeteria and has just given away its entire hard-earned building fund to a family with 6 adopted foster children with severe developmental needs. The members said to the family, 'God wouldn't want us to build God a house before we built you one.' Jesus has some odd notions of success." Willimon continues, "One of my worst days, a grueling 8-hour marathon of appointments. I was about ready to go home when I was informed I had one more appointment. 2 older women walked into my office. One said, 'We've come to Birmingham from Coleman to tell you about our ministry. Gladys's grandson was busted, DUI. We went over to the youth prison camp to visit him. Sad to say, we'd never been there before. We were appalled by the conditions. These young men packed in there like animals. We got to know them. Are you aware that only 10% of them can read? An illiterate 19-year-old, and we wonder why he's in prison.' The other said, 'Well, we began reading classes. Sarah taught school before she retired, and that led to a Bible study in the evening. We're up to 3 groups a week. Two friends of ours who can't get out bake cookies for the boys. Some of them said those cookies are the first gift they've ever received.' Willimon asked with bureaucratic indifference, 'And you want the conference to take responsibility for this ministry?' Sarah responded, 'No, we don't want you to mess it up. So you need me to come up with some money for you.' 'We don't need any money. If we need something, we'll get it from our little church.' Willimon asked, 'Then why have you come down here to tell me about this?' 'Well, we know that being a bishop must be one of the most depressing jobs in the church. Too many things that we're not doing that Jesus expects us to do. So Gladys thought it would be nice if we came down here to tell you to take heart. Something's going right in Coleman.'" That is what Jesus was trying to tell the scribes and the Pharisees, and trying to tell you and me, that we will find our deepest joy not in waiting like Burr, but in serving God and doing good. Amen.
Theodosia writes me a letter every day. I'm keeping her bed warm while her husband is away. He's on the British side in Georgia. He's trying to keep the colonies in line. Well, he can keep all of Georgia. Theodosia, she's mine. Love doesn't discriminate between the sinners and the saints. It takes and it takes and it takes, and we keep loving anyway. We laugh and we cry and we break and we make our mistakes. And if there's a reason I'm by her side when so many have tried, then I'm willing to wait for it. I'm willing to wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. My grandfather was a fire and brimstone preacher. But there are things that the homilies and hymns won't teach ya. My mother was a genius. My father commanded respect. When they died, they left no instructions, just a legacy to protect. Death doesn't discriminate between the sinners and the saints. It takes and it takes and it takes, and we keep living anyway. We rise and we fall and we break and we make our mistakes. And if there's a reason I'm still alive when everyone who loves me has died, I'm willing to wait for it. Wait for it. I'm willing to wait for it. Standing still, lying in wait. Hamilton faces an endless uphill climb. He has something to prove, he has nothing to lose. Hamilton faces relentless, he wastes no time. What is it like in his shoes? Hamilton doesn't hesitate. He exhibits no restraint, takes and he takes and he takes, and he keeps winning anyway. Changes the game, plays and he raises the stakes. And if there's a reason he seems to thrive and so few survive, then goddammit, I'm willing to wait for it. I'm willing to wait for it. Life doesn't discriminate between the sinners and the saints. It takes and it takes and it takes, and we keep living anyway. We rise and we fall and we fall. Wait for it, 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 wait for it.
Depart now in the company of Christ the Creator, and as you go, remember, by the goodness of God you were born into this world. By the grace of God you have been kept all day long, even unto this hour. And by the love of God, fully revealed in the face of Jesus, you are being redeemed. Amen.